morning. Today's Wednesday, July 29th. I'm headed into Coeur d'Alene Post Falls to do a couple estimates and a repair. It won't be a very exciting day. Just kind of some simple stuff. Might get another call or something come in, you never know. But I tried to get some video yesterday, but just didn't really have an opportunity and just got kind of busy, and so fortunately I didn't get any video. But today's a beautiful sunny day. It's going to be pretty warm. A little smoky out, not as bad as it has been, I don't think. Well, it is pretty smoky over towards the mountains. There's a lot of fires going on right now. It's pretty dry. Kind of how the summers end up being around here anymore. We always end up getting a lot of wildfires around surrounding areas, and then it just kind of fills this whole area with smoke. So kind of takes away a little bit from the beauty of it and that, but what do you do? Just try to enjoy it as much as you can. Still a beautiful area to live in. Got the four seasons around here, and not too hot, not too cold. Don't have a lot of snakes and some of the stuff you get in like southern areas and that. So I like this area. It's definitely booming. A lot of people moving here. It's growing more and more and more. A lot of building that. That's great for business. Kind of a bummer for the area filling in if you kind of like more of that privacy and don't want people on top of you. But again, what do you do? Kind of one of the reasons I live outside of town, and I do like people, but I don't necessarily want to stare into my neighbor's backyard either. So kind of why I live out here, and it's a little bit of a jaunt. I'm about an hour away from Coeur d'Alene. So probably I think a little over half hour, 45 minutes to St. Mary's, half hour to Harrison. So not too bad. I don't mind driving at all. Don't really mind driving in the snow and winter. It's more so other people that I don't like driving around when it comes to winter time. As far as my driving skills or whatever, I'm comfortable with. I've driven in the snow my whole life, so that doesn't bother me at all. But I've had my business for about 2 years now, and I'm kind of been part-time for probably I'd say a good year plus of it. Been doing it full-time now I did it for a while full-time, and then I had to go back to work for another company because I just didn't have enough business to keep going steady. So now I'm doing back to full-time. I've been full-time again since April. I've been in the trade for over 12 years. Went to HVAC schooling back in 2014. Did a 9-month full-time program, community college, and gone to several training classes. As many as I could, pretty much. Kind of my go-to is residential HVAC. I've done some commercial. When I originally got into the trade, I thought commercial was where I wanted to go. After doing some light commercial stuff, I just kind of decided I didn't really enjoy it. I find a lot of places, restaurants and a lot of these commercial buildings, they just want to band-aid everything, and they don't want to put any money into the equipment, and they just want it going, which is fine. I mean, whatever. I mean, I like doing the repairs, and I'd rather repair something than always have to replace it. But there's times where it's like, man, come on, like, you know, it's 30-year-old piece of equipment, and we got to work on it every couple of months. Like, you know, bite the bullet and replace it. But, you know, people are cheap, and, you know, and a lot of people just don't have the extra money, too. I mean, you know, and it's a mixture. Like, I've got a lot of customers that are, you know, you never know. You can't judge somebody based on what you think. You know, you got to give them options. I've had the wealthiest people, you know, and I offer people the exact same thing either way. Like, if I think the equipment needs replaced, I'm going to, you know, offer that. If I think it needs repaired, I'm going to offer that. And I'm going to offer them both options. Unless it's just to a point where it can't be repaired because it's too far gone or whatever, then, you know, then if it's something that I just don't want to, you know, put my name on or whatever, repair I don't want to put my name on because I don't feel like I could back it or I don't feel like it's the right decision, then I'll just say, you know what, I'm not going to charge you diagnostic. I don't want anything to do with it. You know, if you want to, this is your only option, you know, call another company, see if they want to do it for you. Very rare that is ever the case, but anyway, kind of back to my original point is there's people, you know, you can have somebody that doesn't look like they have any money, and you offer them, say, you know, you could think that, oh, well, they're not going to want to replace the system, they're just going to want to band-aid it, or you know, they may not want this air purifier or whatever because, you know, you don't think they can afford it, and you offer it to them, and they're like, yeah, let's do it, you know, I want to replace it now, or yeah, I want air purification, or whatever, you know, if you don't offer it. And I'm not pushy about anything. Like, you know, I'll ask a customer, hey, are you interested in, you know, air purification? If they say no, they're like, okay, I leave it at that. I don't push it on them. You know, if they say, well, yeah, you know, I've got allergies, I've got asthma, I've got whatever, you know, I've got lung issues. It's like, okay, well, you know, I have this product, and I don't charge either what, you know, probably a lot of other companies charge. I kind of do it just to, you know, just to make a little bit of money, and more so to help people out. Like, I'm not looking to get rich and retire off of, you know, one person, like a lot of these companies seem to be now. So it's, to me, it's like, I want to make enough money to survive, make a living, you know, be comfortable, not rich. I mean, who doesn't want to be rich? But, you know, I want to have a good reputation. And that's what I've been trying to build my company on, is reputation. You know, so many people out there now, all they want to do is just sell, because they're making commissions off of it. They don't even care. They don't care who they screw over or anything. It's just sad. Like, that's not what I want to build my business off of. I don't want that kind of reputation going around, you know. And it amazes me how many companies, like, they don't care. They just, it's all about the buck. Like, and it's really sad. It really is. You know, you don't have the handshake deals anymore. You can't trust, you know. I hear constantly, oh yeah, I paid this guy $15,000 and now he doesn't answer his phone. You know, I paid this guy $30,000, he doesn't answer his phone, especially excavation companies, you know, that are doing like foundation, you know, like digging out for foundations and all for houses. I hear that all the time. I just don't get it. Like, how do you sleep at night? But anyway, enough said with that. Again, I got on another tangent. Back to my original thing is you can't judge a book by their cover. I've had very wealthy people, and you offer hey, this equipment's 30 years old, it's 40 years old, it's on its last leg, it needs repaired, and they're multi-millionaires, and you're not charging any extra than you would the guy that looks poor. You're charging them the same price no matter what. And you're charging them the same price no matter what. And these people, they don't want to do it. They're like, oh, I don't want to spend the money. Just Band-Aid it or whatever. It's like, okay. And then they're the ones that are going to beat you up on your already really fair pricing. I guess maybe that's how they're rich. Maybe that's how they're rich. I don't know. But, it's hard on the guy, the business guy, the small guy like me that just charges enough to basically get by and do barely at that. And they're sitting there beating you to death on a repair that you're barely making any money on. I've had a lot better customers with just your average Joe, because they understand. They know what it's like to be struggling and not have the money and whatever. And those are the ones that are, they're going to give you, oh, here's an extra $50. Here's some drinks. Here's this, use my bathroom. Do this, They know what it's like to be on that end of things. And then I have had clients that are wealthy too that are the same way. But yeah, so it's it's about rating people and but basically where I'm getting at with all this is I'm just trying to build a good, honest business. Like, it just seems like it's such a rarity these days, and I can't tell you how many different heating and air conditioning companies that have popped up in the last couple of years. Because a lot of these guys, they're getting tired of working for these companies. We had some really good companies around here that built amazing reputations, and then these big, nationwide companies or whatever came in and bought them out, and then totally changed things to where they're no longer reputable companies. All you hear about is how they put it to the customer and how they were hacky, and all they want to do is sell, and all that. And it's sad. It is. It's really sad. And a lot of these guys that have worked for these, good companies, they're like, no, I don't want to be a part of this. And they but I don't know where to go because everywhere else is getting bought out and having the same thing happen to them. So they're like, you know what, I'm going to start my own business. And that's not necessarily where I got, I was lucky. I worked for a company that was pretty honest, and that they did get a little greedy at times. When they're cutting benefits and going out and buying brand new stuff, and they're going on all these vacations, it's like, we didn't care that they went on vacations. We didn't care that they bought a new truck, as long as we were taking care of it. But then when they come to you and say, oh, hey, we're no longer going to provide you with drinks and snacks, or, you don't get taken out to breakfast or lunch, hardly ever anymore, where it used to be kind of a regular thing. And then they're like, well, we're going to cut back on this or that, but then you see them go out and buy a brand new truck, a brand new snowmobile, whatever. Then it's like, okay, well, what the heck? You know, you say you're struggling, or you need to cut back because of this and that, but then you go out and you buy this stuff, you do this stuff. And it was just kind of like, okay, wow. You know, like I said, if they would have taken care of us the same way they'd always taken care of us, and bought that stuff and, you know, went on those vacations, we wouldn't have cared. You know, yeah, you know, you built a successful company, go enjoy it. You know, we'll run it for you. Well, you know, you're taking care of us, we'll take care of you. And, you know, that kind of dwindled off, and maybe they didn't see that. You know, I would try to kind of bring it up, and then I felt like, you know, it'd get kind of just defensive or whatever. And so then, you know, it just kind of got to the point where it's like, you know what? I just want to do my own thing. I'm kind of tired of working for somebody else, doing what they want me to do. You know, I've got my values. I don't want to deal with the drama. You know, I just want to do my thing. I want to go to work. I want to feel proud and good about what I'm doing and go home and, you know, make a paycheck. And, you know, I went through all the work to set my business up. I had quite a few people that say they were going to help me out with it, and then when it came, you know, time down to the wire, I still would have people that would offer advice. Some wanted, some not. And sorry, I just had an email pop up. But some wanted, some not. But then kind of when it came down to it, where it was like, yeah, I'll help you with, you know, with setting this up, with doing that, and came down to it, and then they just kind of like, you know, fell off, and they were gonna help, you know, they weren't helping at that point, and I pretty much had to do most everything on my own, which has been challenging. You know, I'd rather be on the just kind of running the business management side, doing the work, that kind of thing, versus sitting at a computer, you know, doing that end of it. It's just not really my thing. I don't like, you know, I could sit on a computer and do an estimate here and there or whatever. I don't mind that, but just sit there all day long and like enter in receipts and, or look up, you know, how different business practices, or, you know, how I have to file paperwork or do this and that. I really don't enjoy that. You know, looking up permits and you know, load calculations and all that kind of stuff. That is not my thing. I do not enjoy that at all. But I can't pay anybody to do it. I don't have the money. I don't have the consistent enough work to do that, at least at this point. You know, hopefully eventually I can get to that point. You know, maybe even if I just, you know, if I can hire something part-time to do that. But I really do not enjoy that end of things. And it just takes away from other aspects of my business. I mean, I have a lot of times I wake up at 5 in the morning, I'm on my computer doing estimates, paperwork, and that till, you know, whatever, 8 o'clock or whatever, and then I gotta leave and go do my work for the day, and I try to do some stuff throughout the day if I get time. I come home, a lot of times I'll get home, you know, 8, 9 o'clock at night or whatever, and then I'm doing I'm doing estimates, whatever. I've done estimates at midnight. You know, the people think owning a business is sunshine and rainbows. It's a lot of work. You know, it is. It's a lot of work. But it's rewarding. I really enjoy it. I do. You know, there's definitely difficult times in that. And, And another thing I've noticed is a lot of people think, oh, you're a business owner, you're rich, you have money, you own a business. I had an old coworker that used to say that stuff to me all the time, and I used to think he was joking with me, but I think he was serious, because a lot of people have that mentality. It's like, no, I'm broke, I don't have any money. But eventually, at some point, when you get really established in that, you probably, a lot of guys do really well, but starting out, no, I'm in debt, and, I had to buy equipment, I had to buy a van, I had advertising and shirts and this and that, and, so I had to go into debt to do my business, and then, and I'm not charging, these insane astronomical rates to people, I'm just charging what I believe is a fair price that I can sleep with it, at night, knowing I'm not, putting it to somebody. But it's a lot of work, but to me it's absolutely rewarding. I've always wanted to own my own business, even back from when I was a kid. Back then it was more automotive. That was kind of what I grew up doing, is working on cars, and that was my knowledge. I went to school for that. I did 2 years at a community college. I went to school for it, and I got out there, and I didn't get into a shop that I enjoyed working at. I tried a couple different places, and I did not like it. The automotive world is ruthless, and same with the ATRAC's becoming. All everybody wants to do is, retire off of one person, basically. It's like, and I know what it's like being on that end of it, and how gut-wrenching it is to, you go in and, your engine's bad, or whatever, say you got a bad engine in your car or transmission, you go in and they want $15,000 for an engine, $5,000 for a transmission, and yeah, it's a lot of work, and you got the time and everything into it. I get it, but at the same time, it's like, they don't have to charge as much as they do. Some shops are, same thing. Some shops are reasonable. A lot of them want to retire off of you. And a lot of these bigger places, they've got a lot of overhead, and that's with me too. I got overhead. I've got maintenance, repairs, fuel, insurance on the van, business insurance, my bond, all my advertising, my accountant, all these different, expenses to buy material, everything else, and then the training to keep up to date, so I know how to continue to repair the new equipment that's coming out, and all the stuff, and there's a lot of money involved in all this, so and it's something that a lot of people don't think about. You go out to change a capacitor. Maybe the capacitor's $10, and I charge you $150. Well, you got to consider, I've got my drive time to and from your place. When I sell that capacitor, I've got to go back to the supply house, and I've got to replace that capacitor. There's more of my time. I got to restock it on my van. The knowledge to diagnose it, to repair, replace it, to warranty it. If I put in a brand new capacitor and it fails in 2 weeks, I'm going back and I'm replacing that on my dime. If I don't charge anything extra, if it's a $10 capacitor and I charge it $30 to replace it, why would I even do it? I get people, oh, I can buy that for $10 on Amazon. Okay, fine. I guess then go ahead and do it. Hopefully you replace it right. Don't hook it up wrong. Some people, yes, it is simple. It's not a difficult repair. But I've known guys that, have been in the trade a long time or whatever, and, they put the wires on wrong. Some of them, you got 3 wires going to them. They're simple, and other ones, they've got a bunch of commons running off of it or whatever, and you just go all willy-nilly and unhook everything at once, so it's like, oh, what went to here? I've been doing it long enough now where I could wire a system without even looking at a diagram. I just, to me, it's just kind of become second nature. You know how it works, and you know what goes where. But you're paying for knowledge. Like you go out and the homeowner's like, yeah, my system doesn't kick on. Maybe you diagnose it in 30 seconds, and then you charge them $150. They're like, oh my god, it only took you 30 seconds. It's like, yeah, but it took me years of knowledge. That's a simple example. It could be something more complicated, but a lot of people know what a capacitor is and that, so that's why I use that. But yeah, so it's just understanding that you're paying for knowledge, you're paying for the business to do everything. It's just like anything. I've gone to doctors' houses and I've charged, it's $150 to this capacitor. Oh my goodness. It's like you charge $200 for a Band-Aid. Don't even go there, So, but anyway, kind of a little rant, kind of a little just update, little bit about me, kind of how I'm running my business and how it's going and that. And, if I can continue to do these videos, I will. And, if I get enough feedback or likes or whatever off of them. But I'm gonna continue it, and hopefully I'll have more videos of actually working on stuff so you guys can see that versus me rambling on. But I figured I kind of do one anyway, just to kind of start out with and kind of give you a little bit of, like I said, how I'm running my business. And